Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to yet another session of our special ones in the Deen and Dunya classes. We have today some really special guests and a really important topic for discussion. As you see, I'm in a classroom here in Gayaza, so alhamdulillah, I hope that the topic for discussion today will be very beneficial to the students here, as well as students and parents everywhere. So as always, we start with the intention, which I'll put up on the screen. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. نويت تعلم تعليم وتذكر وتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على تمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وثوابه وقربه سبحانه وتعالى. Again, the intention is always to focus our minds on what we want to get out of this. Studying and teaching, we always need to have the intention that when we learn, we will teach this at some point, maybe in the near future, maybe in the very far distant future, but there's always that intention to teach. So when we make these multiple intentions, as you can see here on the left-hand side of the screen, then inshallah, for the hour or so or 2 hours that we're seated in this class, we will be rewarded by Allah as though we have done all of these things. Up until we actually do them, then we get an increase in that reward, but just intending that we're going to give and take benefit, to give benefit to people who will listen to our stories and the program, and hoping that we will get Allah's pleasure, we get rewarded for that. So it's important to always focus our intentions. And today's special one is overcoming bullying. We are in environments where bullying has taken on a different hue, a different facade, it's like a whole different beast altogether. For those of us who grew up and were in school in the 80s and into the 90s, the bullying the things that we called bullying then, if you mention them now, the teens might even laugh, because they, for the most part, they were not even bullying incidents. They were teasing that got a bit uncomfortable and irritating, but it was never down. It never got so much to bullying. Of course, there were instances of bullying, but by and large, most of us would have experienced teasing as opposed to bullying. Right now, more and more children and adults, as they go into their adult lives, are experiencing bullying. So it's not even teasing anymore, it's outright bullying, which is affecting more and more individuals, as opposed to in the past where fewer people experienced bullying, and then the majority experienced teasing. So this makes it a very, very important topic that we need to be able to understand when bullying is actually happening, what we can do about it, and what we can do to help people who are either bullying or facing bullying, or ourselves, just to maintain an awareness. And before we go into the session, it's a good one to remind us of this hadith. It's typically an introductory hadith that is taught to all students, Muslim students, when they first attend a class with their teachers. But it's also very important in everyday life. And here we have Abdullah ibn Amr, may Allah be pleased with him, reported that the Messenger of Allah, may peace and blessings be upon him, said, "The merciful will be shown mercy by the most merciful. Be merciful to those on the earth, and the one in the heavens will have mercy upon you." So the reason I brought this back up is that bullying is really counter to mercy. Anytime a person engages in bullying activity where they are the perpetrators of bullying, they have completely forgotten about mercy. They have completely forgotten that they need mercy in their own lives, whatever reason they tend to bullying, but they have forgotten about mercy. So this is something that we need to remind ourselves of. In order for us to receive the mercy of the merciful, we need to show mercy to those on earth. So that's a bit of a reminder, because the people who attend this class regularly know that it is important to to maintain a state of mercy towards those around us. And then we go into, again, a further reminders as to what this religion is all about. And the reason I'll explain why we go into this reminder is that the religion of Islam is made of 3 dimensions: the dimension of Iman, the dimension of Islam, and the dimension of spiritual excellence. So with Iman, we have what we believe in the heart, and Iman is intangible. It is what it is that's in the heart that makes us do the things that we end up doing. And we have the aspects of Iman, the 6 pillars of Iman. Then we move into Islam, which is the outward submission. And the Islam aspect and dimension of the religion is very much the 5 pillars of Islam, and it is actions that people can see around us. So first, with the testification of faith, we utter it in front of witnesses so that they know that we are committing to believe in Allah and His Messenger, and all the rest of them. When it comes to then the 3rd dimension, spiritual excellence, it's pulling all of the things together, that we believe in Allah. If we truly believe in Allah on the last day, and He has told us to be kind and merciful to those around us, spiritual excellence reminds us of those things. How can we best display our Iman? How can we best display that we are truly servants of the Creator, servants of the merciful, servants of the just, and servants who are going to return to their Lord on the day of judgment and will be taken to account. Servants who recognize that divine decree actually does exist, and whereas we take responsibility for our actions, there are certain things that Allah decrees and we have no say in that. So with spiritual excellence, that's the 3rd dimension. That's where we take a lot of the binding of this religion together. It's an empty religion if all you do is go and pray the 5 prayers, and then you go off, and in this case with the theme today, go off as soon as you stepped off the prayer mat, you go and engage in abusive behavior towards a brother or a sister, a younger brother or a sister, or if you're in a school, that you go off and bully one of the weaker students who you think is a good target for you. So this is where the spiritual excellence comes in, and why we then go into the types of discussions that we have. So if we don't balance all of these things out, then we risk returning to our Lord in a deficient manner, that we knew of what we needed to do, but we did not excel at doing those things. And in that lack of excelling, then we fell into traps and tricks of shaitan and made mistakes, which will be detrimental to our hereafter. As a simple recap, last week we looked at, and this is in our regular series, we looked at the disease of envy. We looked at the diseases of the heart one at a time, and last week we started looking at the disease of envy, which we defined, and we'll carry on in the subsequent 2 weeks to finish what envy is all about. And the main thing is that envy is seeing a person with a blessing and desiring that they lose that blessing. And if you're able to make them lose that blessing, you would do something to make them lose that blessing. And in some ways that envy links into the bullying that we're going to be talking about today, because sometimes the reason people will bully others is because they've seen something of envy about the person that they're bullying. It might be that they're wealthier, it might be that they're smarter, it might be that they make friends easily, and this person, out of envy, tries to make that person lose the bouts of happiness that they have in their life by bullying. So that's what we did last week, and inshallah we'll carry it on from next weekend in our regular series. So this week we've got conversations with Hajat Rehmah Kasule and Dr. Faridah Sekalala. Hajat Rehmah Kasule is pioneering and spearheading a campaign on bullying, overcoming bullying. Assalamu alaikum, Hajat Rehmah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And it's a pleasure to be here today.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. And then we've also got Dr. Faridah Sekalala. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Okay, thank you very much. So Dr. Faridah has got experience in working with children, but she's also got experience of of bullying. So we'll talk about those aspects, and obviously she's a parent as well, and Hajat Rehmah is also a parent. So they bring multiple dimensions to the discussion today, as people who've been bullied, people who've supported those who are being bullied, and people who are really looking to see how we can address the problem, at least with the people immediately around us. Okay, before we go into the discussion, there's some headlines I pulled out just so we can see the enormity of the issue that we have when it comes to bullying. Here we have the first one, that cyberbullying victim demands 5 million Uganda shillings. So this is taken from a newspaper here in Uganda. Bullies or a bully scenario is trying to extract cash. Either I think this was from their bully, and it makes us really see that we should be taking this seriously. We have here, obviously, in a school here in Uganda, they are trying to fight bullying. They're coming together with their teachers and the students, as you can see, that they are aware of bullying and they want to do something about it. But as we move on to the next headline here, the teachers need help with bullying. Much as many teachers will have the will and the intent to prevent bullying and avoid instances of bullying, they need help with bullies. They don't know what to do. Many of them don't. Of course, there'll be some who are experienced, but many of them don't. And then we go into, I think the next one up here is Oxford. This is in the UK. Oxford is stunned by teen's death. So again, this is linked to bullying. So a teen who was bullied so much that they felt that their life was not worth living anymore, that they took their own life. And this is quite serious, that it, as we've said before, when we were growing up, it was not very common to hear of bullying instances that resulted in a person taking their own life. However, we are hearing more and more of these anymore, and it doesn't help that we now have the likes of social media, and it makes it difficult for people to stay away from their bullies. Whereas in the past, before the advent of social media and phones, we had people being bullied in schools, but there was some respite when they went back home, that they left the school where the bully was, and they got home to a safe place. Right now with social media, many children have, and many students and teenagers and people beyond have got their phones with them all the time. And sometimes they'll even take them to bed with them. And it means if they are if they're experiencing bullying, it makes it very difficult for them to switch off from that bullying. The bully is even in their bedroom because they've taken the phone with them. That bully is in their bedroom, that bully is preventing them from sleep, and it becomes a problem. And then there's a piece here is my daughter, the cyber bully. Again, this is the experience of a parent who recognizes that their child is actually the bully rather than the bullied, and how to deal with that. So inshallah, we're hoping that we can get into this discussion with Dr. Faridah and Hajat Rehmah. And later on, we'll just talk about some of the things that bullies experience, or the feelings of those who are being bullied and those who are the bullies. So with that, I'll invite Hajat Rehmah. Please tell us why you're interested in the subject of bullying, and what your experience has been when it comes to bullying.
Thank you so much, Sophia, and good morning again, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. For me, I take it from two levels. One, as a child, I was bullied a lot, but interestingly, these are things you don't reflect on or speak about till when you have the courage. So I came from a village school in Gomba, and I went to Nabisunsa. In Gomba, we never spoke any English. And I went to Nabisunsa, where I had children coming from city schools. That time it was Chitante, Nakasero, and I was coming from Nachiju Primary School. I didn't know English. And so girls used to bully me because I couldn't speak properly. That was one. Secondly, I was bullied because of my voice. As you can hear, my voice is so deep and in a girls' school. So whenever I spoke up, girls said, boy. And I decided to retrieve. I decided not to speak at all. So I never spoke at all. And that I lost my self-confidence. I never spoke in class. Even if I knew the answer, I never spoke. I remember, let me give you a short story. One of my geography teacher, Mr. Biaruhanga, I can never forget his name. I got 96 in geography, and he called me, that was in S2, he called me and said, did you cheat? How come I've never seen you in class? He had never seen me because I never spoke in class. And he took me to the staff room, and I redid that test when everyone was watching, and I got still 96 or 95, I don't remember what I got. And he told me, from today onwards, you have to sit at the front and you have to speak up. For me, I was lucky that someone recognized that and told me to speak up. That's number one. Number two for me is what I did. Because I didn't know English, I would have dropped out of school. And this is what I tell young people today: take action. Because I realized I have to fit in and learn English. So I told a friend of mine to teach me English so that I learn English and be like other girls. So to any one of you who is bullied, take action, because I would have said, you know what, let me go back to Gomba and drop out of school. But I said, you know what, Nabisunsa is for me and I'm going to stay. So coming back to today, as a parent, as a mother, I've seen what bullying does to children, the anger that comes with it. And COVID-19 has really made it so bad for children. I was seeing stories of children because they've gained weight, their friends are bullying them. They have cliques, the haves and have-nots. The haves are those who could attend online classes. The haven'ts are those who did do online classes. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do something. Personally, I'm not a bystander in any way. When I see something, I take action. So the action I did is to create a campaign called Be Kind. We are just telling people, be kind. Be kind, as simple as that. Be kind to each other. Be kind in your community. And so Be Kind is a project where we empower children to speak up and speak up about bullying, because it's about speaking up and standing up for someone or standing up for yourself. And this project is sponsored by the MasterCard Foundation, because I realized I want to do something, but I don't have the money. So I was creative enough. I said, someone needs this. And we are saying, be kind, do no harm, full stop. You know, we are not going into details about bullying does this, does that we are doing with the teachers, and we shall come to that. But we are just telling people, be kind. So that's my experience and why I'm so passionate about this.
Thank you very much, Hajat Rehmah. I can see just the top of your top has B, and I imagine it's Be Kind. Yes, mashallah. Okay, so the purple and the white, Be Kind. Thank you very much for that. And I've also just asked the students here to think of some areas that they would like to share about bullying, or any advice that they'll have, but we'll have a session for that. We don't have to come onto the screen straight away, but we'll have a session when you join in. So then we will go on to Dr. Faridah. Tell us something about why this particular topic, and a bit about your experience of bullying.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. When Sophia mentioned that she was going to deal with this topic, just to have a discussion with the teens, I thought, oh wow, this is a very important topic for one to discuss, because I think it's one where us as parents, as adults, we tend to undermine, yet it's a very important topic in the young people's lives. But actually, bullying is everywhere. Bullying is in workplaces, bullying is in schools, bullying is in teams, even in families we have bullying. So it's important that someone addresses this, and children have the skills to equip themselves with how to handle it. In terms of my background, as Sophia mentioned, I am a pediatrician by background. And so I had an incident where a child came into clinic on one day, I think it was a Friday, and the parents were concerned that this child was crying all the time. And we didn't have a lot of time, so our sessions used to be an hour. So the child spoke about lots of things. Our consultations used to be jointly done with a psychiatrist, which was fortunate. And this child, we never got to the bottom of why they were crying. So we thought it was something like maybe abuse at home. And the plan was to see them on Monday to complete the assessment. But this child hanged themselves at the weekend, and basically the child died. And I remember that a lot every time someone talks about bullying. And so you see how grave this problem can be. But it later came out that the child had been bullied by other students at school because she was a bit chubby and she was clever. So they kind of, I think the rest of the children noticed that she was clever, but they used the thing that was her weakness, so her weight. And that's what caused her to kill herself. But personally, of course, as Sophie mentioned, when we were growing up, we had lots of incidents that happened, but you never really thought about them deeply, that they were, you would call it teasing. But later in life, and I went to the same school as Hajat Rehmah, I had an incident in senior 6 where me and, fortunately, I keep saying fortunately for me, and we keep laughing about it now because we are two very good friends who ended up being in this incident, had to move out of our room in senior 6 because we were having these people who kept bullying us, and we had to live in other people's rooms in the night just to get out of the space that we felt was not safe for us. We got on with our reading. Unfortunately, both of us went to med school, but I kept thinking back, if we had not had another place where we could go to feel safe, because at that point in time, you are not going to tell a teacher what was going on. It could have changed the dynamics of our life, but alhamdulillah, we are where we are, we can laugh about it. But bullying is very significant. It can lead to one dying, and for me, that makes me really sigh when I talk about it. So I'm glad, Sophia, you brought it up, and I hope many young people can at least get an introduction to that topic, be able to speak about it with their parents, with their teachers. And as Hajat Rehmah says, I think we need to be kind, but the times have changed and people are mean, and the mean people are around us all the time.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Faridah. It's quite poignant when you talk about a non-experience professionally of a child being bullied and pretty much dying as you're hoping you can get to the point where you can support them and get to the bottom of what the issue was. So that is something that would send chills down the back of any parent hearing that a child, of course, the parent recognized that the child needed support, but they didn't get to that support before. Obviously, then we look into the fact that we're Muslim, we know that everything, qadrullah, Allah happens, but as a parent, you want to make sure that you're doing everything that you possibly can. So I think now is a good time to actually define what bullying is. And I've got something here that talks about what bullying is, and we'll define it, and then we'll go into Hajat Rehmah prepare, how can we recognize bullying, particularly in schools? We'll just talk about that after this. So we have here, what is bullying? And the first one is the dictionary definition. So bullying being to seeking to harm, intimidate or coerce someone perceived as vulnerable. And I think in the instances that you've talked about, Hajat Rehmah, when you went into secondary school, the fact that your articulation in English wasn't as great as the other students, they noticed that as a point of vulnerability. And then Dr. Faridah, this child, this patient that you were seeing, they were clever, but then their point of vulnerability was their weight. So someone seeking to harm and intimidate them. Then that's the dictionary definition. And then this was taken off a website, I think it was Stop Bullying. It says, bullying is a repeated aggressive behavior where one person or a group of people in a position of power deliberately intimidates, abuses, or coerces an individual with the intention to hurt that person physically or emotionally. Acts of bullying can be physical or verbal. So now this is important to note that in some instances, acts of bullying are very, very physical and others are very verbal. But at the end of the day, a person is looking to intimidate, abuse, or coerce a person into a particular activity. And I think here it's important to note the difference between conflict and bullying. During our teenage years, you'll notice that we have a lot of growing, that we have different levels of growing, different rates of growth, where some children, some teens will mature much faster than the others. And that maturity or lack of maturity in some instances might bring about conflict between these characters. And in that conflict, some people trying to overpower others in terms of being able to speak. And that the conflict, I think, is a natural aspect that comes with development and finding ourselves and finding our way. However, we've got to be able to recognize when that conflict has now moved into bullying, and it's not a matter of us trying to find our way and in who we are and what it is that we enjoy and don't enjoy. When does it cross the line from expected conflict that comes with teens being in the same space to bullying? So over to Hajat Rehmah, how do we recognize bullying? And I think after Hajat Rehmah, I'll ask one of the students here to say something about bullying themselves before we go to Dr. Faridah. How can we recognize bullying?
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'll speak about this at two levels. One, how do you recognize your child is being bullied? That's one. Many times when someone is bullied, the first thing is to lose self-confidence. They no longer know who they are. They fear everything that comes their way. That's number one. Number two is anger. A lot of children get angry, and most cases, they take it out on someone. Either they take it out on someone or they keep quiet about it. And you see someone who was always talking and, all about, and then all of a sudden they don't speak. They don't want to speak to anyone. They are timid. They feel like someone is watching me, someone is going to hurt me. That's number two. Number three, and also very impactful, is when even children, for example, if they are going to school, they just decide, I don't want to go to school anymore. I don't want to go to these places anymore. That's a sign that something is going on in their environment. But those are three top of the range that you can really see. But number four, what is also very interesting is the anger that comes, whether they say something or don't say something. They are angry about everything. They cry about everything when there is no to cry. So I think to the parents, we really need to recognize those signs and symptoms before it erupts. That's number one. But then when you talk about teachers, because most of our children spend a lot of time in schools, the teachers need to recognize little things like if someone is over-abusing others, they are pushing them, whether it's physical, verbal, teachers need to recognize that. Because guess what? At times you think, oh, these guys are outgoing and they want to be the ones to speak. And in the process, they are intimidating others to say, don't speak, it's me to speak. They take up their space. Bullies love taking up their space. They take up their space and they push others to the limit because they feel like it's me to speak, it's me to be seen. Don't speak about this, it's me. So if you see a child who is intimidating others into keeping quiet, just know that they are bullies. So you have to go underneath and see what else are they doing. Because it's not always a physical thing. Sometimes it's emotional. We've seen that in schools a lot, where they sideline some children and they form a strong clique where they are untouchables. No one talks about them. No one can ever deal with them. And they exclude others. At break time, they don't sit with you. At lunchtime, they don't sit with you. We've also had instances where, for example, children who bring food at school, you bring your food and they pour it, or they will say, don't sit with us because your food doesn't smell good. So we really need to recognize those silent but very destructive symptoms. They look up to be as if they are, like Faridah said, you may think it's teasing, but no, it's bullying. And we really need to change the wording, because when you say teasing is like, you're joking about something. But these children are not joking. They are actually bullying their friends. We've had my last one, the instance which happened in one of the international schools, where this girl, they got her picture, expanded it. They used Photoshop. They are good at doing that. They used Photoshop, and she became so big, and they posted it on the social media. What these children don't realize is the fact that that picture will never go away. It's somewhere in the cloud. Anyone can download it along the way. So one thing, once you do it, you can't retrieve it, especially with a cyberbullying. So as parents, teachers, anyone around us, even brothers and sisters, your siblings, look at them, ask questions. What is going on? I think that's the best we can do. Let's ask questions, but we really need to look them in the eye and say, are you okay? Especially if you see that trends going in another direction, ask questions.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Hajat Rehmah. Again, it's really important to have some of these points made out, because some of the things you said are very obvious. Look out for any changes in behavior in a child, but if parents are very busy trying just to earn a living for their families, it's very easy for them to overlook these things. And I think this conversation is to get us to be more aware, more mindful of the things that are happening around us. And moving on to Chantal here, who's a student at Gayaza. She's got a few things that you'd like to say. I would like to believe that I didn't bully her into saying something, but she'll tell us a few things that she has.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Chantal. I really appreciate the initiative that you've come up with to talk about bullying and make us more aware about it. I would say in our generation, currently at school, we have more of verbal bullying and cyberbullying. There's very less of physical bullying, to my knowledge. And the bullying it really affects someone, not just psychologically, but also you can realize someone loses their confidence. You'd find someone who is very extroverted, would be participating in sports, is now very to themselves, and not just losing their confidence, they also drop in their grades, of which we come to school mainly for academics. So if someone is bullied, their grades are also going to show that they are degrading. Yeah, then from experience, I wasn't bullied per se, but I usually give advice to those who have been bullied. And I don't know if it can be done, but if you can encourage the bullied to be able to talk to the teachers more, because the teachers can have more influence on the bully. You may tell me as a student, and I can pity with you, sympathize with you, but it's not much that I can do and won't take the situation away. So if we can encourage teachers to be more supportive and be able to talk to that girls more often, I think all will be well. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Chantal. Thank you. So those are some thoughts from someone who's in school, and she's mentioned something very important, Chantal. Thank you for that. That it's more verbal and cyberbullying, and both of those actually, I think, I don't know which one would leave more lasting wounds, the physical or this verbal and cyberbullying, because it cuts really deep. That with physical bullying, maybe you were hit, the wound can heal physically, and if you stay away from the person, I'm not saying that there's one particular good bullying and the other, but with cyberbullying, I think it's just to show the intensity of the nature of bullying around the cyber and the verbal, that cuts through the heart, and it cuts very, very deep and very, very, very far, and you can never be sure that you're safe from the bully. Whereas physically, at least you can feel like, okay, I'm away from that space, they're not going to attack me. But with cyber and verbal, it makes it very, very intense for these young people who are experiencing more of this. So we've got to be aware of how we can support them with this nature of bullying. So Dr. Faridah, just what your take on how can we recognize it? Obviously, you have your professional background that you can draw on. How can we recognize bullying?
Thanks a lot, Sophie. I wanted to recap a few things. I know that we described what bullying is, but I thought I would just mention a few things which I think would be important for us to understand at all age groups what exactly this bullying is. There is a definition that I thought, was that put it into perspective for us to understand exactly what bullying is. So in the past, they used not to call it bullying. Actually, they called it dominance behavior. And for the younger people, the person who's bullying you makes you feel unsafe in a place where you should feel safe or protected. For example, at home or at school. So a person bullies you to the point that you feel like, I don't want to go to school. And it's an imbalance of power. So the person wants you to lose and they want to win. It's very important for us to see it that way, because then that's where the different types of bullying become important. When we were growing up, we looked at bullying really as the physical aspect, where a child could pinch you, or they spit at you, or they take something away from you. That's what we thought was bullying. Or they made you do something that you didn't want to do. I think, Sophia, you remember when we were in senior one, it was washing plates with sardines or something like that. But now it's things like verbal bullying, where someone teases you, name calls you in front of other people. People will laugh. All these things affect your self-esteem. So someone calls you fat, and their aim really is to put you down. You would have been confident because this is how you are, but someone calls you fat among children in this day and age, that puts you down. Then there is social bullying, where someone spreads a rumor or leaves you out on purpose. So you have something going on, for example, a party, and someone leaves you out amongst other girls. That is a type of bullying. Or telling someone not to be your friend. These are things that we as parents have to be very aware of. So imagine a child tells another child, do not be this person's friend. If you think about it, that is not right. Then the cyberbullying, of course, is the other type now, where rude statements are put out there, hate messages, abusive messages are sent to someone, and the intent is to hurt you. So that is important for us to recognize. When I asked my daughter what was the one message that she could mention, because Hajat Rehmah has really summed it all. My daughter said to me, what you need to tell the parents or the teachers is that they need to listen rather than hear. Because if they listen, they'll be able to pick up on the message from the child about what is going on in their life. But if you're just hearing, then you're just passively putting your ear there as the child says what they're saying, but you will not understand what's behind, what's causing them the grief that they're going through. Then the other thing is the other thing she said is that you need to see instead of look. And I thought this was another important message for us as parents and as adults to realize that many a times we are too busy, so we don't give the children an opportunity to express themselves. We don't listen, we don't validate what they are saying to us. And these are important things that we need to do. So I think the signs have been mentioned by Hajat Rehmah, and then Chantel also mentioned a few things. But we need to see them. We need to be able to identify them to help the children, and the best way it will be to talk to the children. And without doing that, we won't be able to come to a way to help.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Dr. Faridah. I think we're going to take a complete different turn, but we'll take the hand raised. Rashida, you've raised your hand. Would you like to say, what have you got to say?
This is really, I'm so pleased that we're having such a forum sort of to talk about bullying. And I think as parents, I think it really sort of speaks volumes, and it's food for thought for us. Dr. Faridah has made very good points of breaking down some of these issues in great detail, and I like the fact that actually she's broken it down in small sort of aspects, whereby even the mere getting someone not joining into a group or isolating that person or friendship or things like that. And I think what I wanted to sort of bring forward, obviously, as a mother who's got children in Uganda, is, and for a start, when a child does not want boarding school, if you've got two children and one loves boarding school and the other one doesn't like the boarding school. And I think it really speaks volumes in a sense that actually we have to, and I'm talking to myself as I'm speaking, that we have to sort of just point out what is key, what are the key main features for that person or for that child not wanting to go back to that boarding school versus going to a day school. And I think there is big factors, as Dr. Faridah has mentioned, that in terms of, and this is where it's going to get me to sit down and say, all right, what is bothering you, what is going on for you? And I think as parents, we're brought up in a typical African mentality that when you enroll a child into a school, you're like, you have to go, you have to go for it. This is what you have to do. But I think it's food for thought, and it's making us sort of be aware that actually some of these things that we're undermining could be major reasons as to why some of the children prefer maybe day school versus boarding school. So yeah, food for thought. So thank you very much for this forum.
Thank you very much, Rashida, for that. We've got some comments, which I will read out, and then we'll move. I think there's something that you touched on, Rashida, which I'd like to get into, but let's take some comments first. Actually, the first comment was from you, isolation. Not sure what you meant by that. I think you were responding to something being said at the time, which out of context is, would you like to elaborate on that so that we all know what it is that you were referring to?
So the isolation meant, as per Dr. Faridah's conversation, that even just getting other friends, isolating that person from their group, their peer group, and actually maybe not wanting them to be friends with others. So they leave them out. And as a result, you tend to see a child withdrawing themselves from the rest of the group. And literally then you sort of tend to see that their activity, the way they interact with others sort of goes down. And then, so in a sense, they end up isolating themselves, which actually leads to other bits and pieces, i.e. depression, anxiety, and things like that in the picture. So that's what I meant.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. So we've got other comments here from Hakim Muwiru. Sometimes these bullies are people put in charge, and they can be very hard to get rid of. I was repeatedly physically bullied in primary school by the son of the owner of the school in Makonzi. The fact that he was the son of the school owner gave him a lot of impunity to do what he did. I had to leave the school to get away from him. I would hide every time I saw him. So again, this is instances where your bully actually has a level of protection from the authorities that could actually change the environment and situation for the bully victim. And I think these are ones that are very difficult to take and appreciate. And if at least you were able to leave the school, your parents were able to support you in that respect, but it would have been a very difficult session or season in your school. So thank you for that, Hakeem. Just one thing I wanted to touch on that came through from Rashida, your comments is when you have two children, one is in boarding school or they're both in boarding school, one really likes the idea of boarding school and the other one doesn't, and they're showing signs of avoidance. It's how can we recognize really when a child is just being picky about the environment that they want to be in? Because there's some children who just want the comfort of home. It's not that school is particularly a difficult place. And then there'll be those who are actually avoiding school because there are instances of bullying or being coerced into activity that they don't like. So how best to recognize this? And this is really opening up the discussion to anyone who has had some thought and reflection upon this. How to recognize when the child is either just not taking you for granted or wanting to take an easy route, and when things are really, really serious.
Sophie, I think the best way really is to have a chat with the children. I think as parents, we are very busy. This generation of parents, we have no time. We don't seem to sit down to talk to children. Because if you sit down and talk to a child, you'll find out that in the gist of the conversation, this child actually just prefers to be home with you. They would want to go to school and come back home. But it is if you have that communication channel open, you'll be able to get down to the nitty-gritty, where in between, if a child mentions, for example, I'm in a group, because I think the best thing I could say that if a child is being bullied in a day school, they know that they'll go home to a safe environment. Whilst if they're in boarding school, they're around the bully all the time. They can move away from where the bully is, but the bully is in their space, and they'll be in their personal space 24 hours compared to the other situation. The best thing for us to do really is to listen to these children, and we can see out, because we're adults, what the difference would be. Is it this child really just wanting to be home, or is it that there's something going on at school? But I think listening is the best way to do this, and having that chat, having that talk. And I think now we're in a generation where we'd like to be the way we were brought up, where we just make decisions on our own. Okay, up, you're going to Nabisunsa tomorrow, that's where we are going. I think we've moved away from that now. We need to sit down and talk. We have to make these children our friends. And if they are friends, we will get to the bottom of these things. A child will honestly tell you, do you know what, Mommy, I don't want to go to this school because I want to be at home, if they are your friends. And that's important. But we are trying to be the generation, we are trying to be parents of the generation that we were growing up in, but we want to be also modern. You can't have it both ways. You have to try, sit down, have chats with the children, and figure out how best to manage this. But bullying seriously can cause you, where you had a child who was very, very clever, performing well, outgoing, the child completely changes, and to get them back to where they were, most times it fails. And in the end, also your relationship with the child also is lost, because they really didn't listen to them. You didn't do anything because they expect you to protect them. And we might think that the teachers will do it for us, but the teachers now have classes with 200 children, where before we were 40. Think about it. Something has to give.
Dr. Faridah, can I just say something on that note? I was in clinic, and I saw, and he was an older man, and he said to me that up to today, he's still got what they call boarding school syndrome. And that was so interesting. I didn't realize it existed. And this is a white guy saying that he's got boarding school syndrome. And I was like, wow, do things like this really exist? And yeah, it's quite profound to hear it from someone much older, still talking about the effects that it caused them back in the days. So yeah.
Yeah, and you're right, Rashida, because childhood trauma, for those of you who are doctors know, childhood trauma doesn't go away. You do something to a child today, when she's 5, she will tell you when she's 50 what you did to them. So it never goes away. But of course, in our part of the world, we don't recognize it. But I wanted to speak about what Hakim put in the chat. Yes, people misuse power. As parents, we are guilty. We are guilty. We never speak to children. It's as simple as asking, how was your day? And believe it or not, whatever you see is a symptom, but there's a root cause somewhere. That child who doesn't want to go to school, who doesn't want to hang out with others, who doesn't want to go to a boarding school, that's a symptom. There's a root cause. Like when we go to doctors, you tell them I have a stomach upset, but they will say, give me your urine, give me your stool, your blood. But for me, I just said, I have this. Let me see your tongue. They know that that's a symptom. There's a root cause somewhere. So to Hakim's point, and we are guilty, parents are guilty. We bully children, give them those harsh words. Omwana musiru, chinechana chirabe, you don't realize that that's bullying because you believe you're the parent. And then when they go to the school environment, and teachers have been speaking to teachers are so guilty, but they didn't realize they were actually bullying. They're using their authority to tell children, sit down, do this, it's commanding, but you don't realize that you're not giving them a chance to express who they are. What do they want? Can we ask children? Can we start asking children, what do you want? What do you think? Without just telling them. We speak over them instead of speaking with them. There's a whole difference there. So we really need to recognize as adults. Lastly on that, where does bullying come from? It comes from our environments, our conditioning, the things we go through, the experience. Believe it or not, there's no bully. There are some, but many bullies have been bullied before. So they have to take it out on someone, that anger. They feel like it has been done to me, I'm going to do it to someone. And it can be based on religion. Why are you putting on that headscarf? Even to this day, when I go to some countries, people ask me, oh, so you mean you have to dress up like that? Why are you dressing up like that? Why are you covering your hair? Religion, race, Black, white, Indian, we have that. And in our communities, ethnicity, you're too Black. We were speaking this week with a girl who comes from Southern Sudan. And she said, I don't feel comfortable in this school because I'm too tall, I'm too dark, I have very white teeth, and the children give her all kinds of names because of her identity. That's who she is. She won't change that, unfortunately. Some things you can change, but your identity and who you are, you can't change it. You can't reverse it. But imagine every day someone is being bullied, you're being bullied because of your identity. So for me, the message to parents and teachers and those who have authority, let's know how to use those the authority we have in a positive manner. Let's speak. We need to speak to our children. It's no longer the old age where we used to say, and Dr. Faridah has talked about that, where the parents spoke and the children listened. No, I think it's time for us as parents to listen. We need to listen, we need to engage the children into discussions. And guess what? These days, they are smarter than us. So let's not also forget that. They're smarter than us. So we need to listen to them to give us ideas.
Thank you very much, Hajat Rehmah. Before we go into delve into a bit more detail on what you just talked about, the causes of bullying, let's take this hand that was raised. Hamida, would you like to unmute and give us your comments?
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Thanks for the submissions. My contribution is by speaking to the children, they tell you what they're going through. Then take it upon yourself to go to the school and have the discussion with the school, because there was an incident that happened when I was speaking to my daughter. We had to go to the school and we raised the issue with the school, and they dealt with it. And then they kept on giving us updates about the situation, because they had to put a plan in place to keep checking on her every now and then to make sure that she was fine. And I also kept on talking to her to find out if things are better now. So we shouldn't just leave it there. We should challenge such things. Sometimes the school might not be aware that this is happening. It might be just among the children, and some of them fear to report it because they don't want to lose their friends. They don't want to be isolated and things like that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Hamida. And it's good to hear that there was a positive response from the school. It's always important that at least the level of authority that you went to try and address this issue, they responded in a positive way. It's not always the case, as we see that the schools that and the environments that we're in actually take bullying seriously. So just going back to some of the things that Hajat Rehmah talked about, the causes of bullying. Now, when we from the time we started the program, we've just been talking about mostly from the perspective of the bullied, the one who's being bullied and experiencing the bullying. Now, there are those, just as there's a bully, there is one who's being bullied. So if a person, how can we handle ourselves or our children if we recognize that they are a bully? If I, sitting here, have heard that, oh, actually, if I'm doing this and doing this, it indicates that I'm a bully. How can I be helped in getting rid of those bully tendencies? And secondly, how can parents help their children stop bullying? Because those kids that bully actually have got parents, and the parents may or may not be aware of the fact, but now that a parent has become aware that their child is a bully, what can they do? Dr. Faridah.
I think as a start, it's accepting and recognizing it, because many a times as parents, we tend to be very defensive. So if someone came and told you your child is a bully, the first thing that most parents will do will say, no, it's my child can't do that. And indeed, most of the times us as parents do not know our children because we don't have the time, we are not there. And then the next thing again is to, if you recognize it and accept that the child is a bully, is to sit down and find out why this child is a bully. As Hajat Rehmah mentioned, a person will hurt another because they are hurt. So there is something about that person or that has happened to that person to make them into what they are. Discussions again are important because most of the time these children are basically unheard, and the reason why they've gone into this bullying thing is so that they can make another person feel less happy so that they can feel happy. So it's a messed up way of dealing with their issues. But most of us parents might find it difficult to manage this, but we have counseling now, and counseling is available even here in Uganda. We have good counselors who can sit down and talk to the children because there is some hurt that has happened. Sadly, reading the statistics, most of the time the bullies, it's the family environment that has made them into a bully. So it's either the family environment or school environment. So something was missed at some point in time, but a little bit of work needs to be done. But if it's done quickly with this child, where you find out the root cause of where the hurt comes from and why they are the way they are, then you will be able to nick it in the butt and prevent this person bullying other people in the future, but also that because that other child might also end up becoming a bully themselves. So you stop the vicious cycle continuing. It takes us back to one thing. We need to look properly, and then we need to listen, have these chats, and also check ourselves. Because Hajat Rehmah mentioned something where us as parents, we speak down to these children, the teachers speak down to the children, and in the end, you end up causing the problem. So I would recommend counseling. Many parents in Uganda tend to think counseling is for people who I've had people say, oh, but my child is not mad, or I'm not mad, why would I need counseling? It's not that way. We need to read more, need to understand more what counseling is. If anyone could afford counseling, I'd say all of us would have counseling, because it's an area to vent, to speak, to find out what causes us to feel the way we feel. And if you can't do it as a parent, it would be nice for you to do it, but most of us can't manage it. Then get someone who has the right skill set to help your child and yourself, because you'll end up doing group sessions to get to the bottom of why they are the way they are and prevent it from happening.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Dr. Faridah. For anyone joining us at this point, we're just gone the halfway point of the program. We're talking about bullying, and the aim is how do we recognize bullying and how do we overcome bullying, mostly from the perspective that many teenagers are reporting bullying activity, or experiencing it, and some of it gets extremely disastrous, that it has led people to commit suicide, and it's not just one or two isolated incidences. I think if you were to make the sobering realization is that I think if you were to make a good scroll of newspaper headlines around the world, you might find one instance of suicide that resulted from bullying every single day from across the world. And that is very, very sobering. And it shows us that there is something that we need to do, and we shouldn't wait for that statistic to come into our backyard, into our homes, and into our schools. So we're talking to Hajat Rehmah, Kasule, and Dr. Faridah Sekalala about bullying. We've talked about what causes bullying, and there was a comment here from one of the students here in Gaza, where I am today. People who are bullied often become bullies as well. So not dealing with it adequately at the time that it was an issue in a person's life, then they turn into bullies themselves, and the cycle perpetuates. And usually whatever we learn, we tend to do it better. And so the bully might even bully the next person a lot worse. So they do in a convoluted way, they do a better job of bullying than was done to them, because now they've got all the tricks in the trade, and they've got the younger, and they've got all the tools that they can master. They've planned this out, or to some extent, because they've relived bullying in their heads. So bullies often become bullies as well. So we've got to be aware of that. So okay, apologies for that. I lost the connectivity for a moment. So I have a question here again from the students here. I think this is to Dr. Rashida. We have a question about the syndrome that was mentioned. What is this syndrome? So Latifa here at Gaza is asking. So Rashida, if you're still on, please do come on and explain what the syndrome is.
So boarding school syndrome, I actually Googled it, and it's a funny definition though.
Your volume is really low. Could you come closer to the microphone, Rashida?
I am at. Could you hear me now?
It's much fainter than the first time around when you came on. It's very faint. But we'll.
Give me 1 second. I think I'm multitasking. 2 secs. How about now?
No. It's fainter.
All righty. I'm not sure what's just happened here. You could carry on to someone else, and then I can.
The very first time you came on, the volume was brilliant. I don't know whether you've changed anything, your position, or using an ear device or something, because sometimes that compromises the audio. So we'll move on to, we've talked about some of the effects, but a question I'd like to put out is, are schools doing enough to handle bullying? What is our sense? Are schools doing enough? And if there is an indication of some schools doing better, what lessons can we learn from certain schools that might be handling bullying better than others? So again, this is opening it up to students and parents who are on the call, and I'll ask the students here, is your school doing well in handling bullying? Okay, they say here to a greater extent, yes, but there's something missing. So if you could come over and tell us what you feel is missing to make it a complete good handling. But any parents on the line, do you feel that your child's school is well equipped to deal with bullying? And if you're a student that's on the line, do you feel that your school is handling bullying well?
I think some schools have good awareness of bullying, and they're putting things in place to manage it. But you have to understand that schooling has changed a lot. The number of children in classes are very many in an environment that used to have so few children. And so for a teacher to be able to identify a child who's being bullied or who's bullying, I think becomes more difficult. As I mentioned previously, we were in schools where in a class year, we were about 80 children. Now the children, you hear numbers which are astonishing. You're not even sure how these children fit in a class. So it's difficult for the teachers to manage it unless they are getting to speak to the children a bit more in smaller groups. And I don't know if that is also possible. So I don't know, I'm not sure. I think the schools that still have fewer children who have a lot of awareness, where these big topical issues are identified early and addressed are there. But I think parents have to do a lot more. The schools have too many children to be able to deal with these individual issues very well, unless a child comes out, speaks. And remember, the one who's bullied normally tends to have lower self-esteem, tends to keep to themselves, just seems to vanish off in unless, someone has an ear or an eye, it would be difficult to pick it up. But that's me. Sorry, I have a lot of background myself.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So over to you.
I think sometimes it's also about the person who's bullying and the one who's bullying. So sometimes the bully themselves don't know that they are bullying the person. For example, I remember last year when we had just become prefects in my S5, sorry. So my class was making a lot of noise. Then I told them to keep quiet. Then some girl from behind me, I was farm prefect. She said, go and tell that to the cows. So I felt like that was bullying, but for her, she didn't know she was bullying me. So after prep, I went and told her, girl, what you did was not nice. Then she said, oh, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings and all that. Yeah. And I also think that schools should sensitize the students about they should make them have more confidence in themselves, so that even if you bully them, it doesn't touch them. For example, let me see. For example, okay, here in this school, some people have long hair, others have short hair. So if, let's say now, people who don't hold puffs well, like if their puff is small and you tell them, hey, and you girl, your puff is so small, it is so small, you should not hold it. Sometimes they think you're bullying them, but if you make them believe that their puff is small, and having a small puff, you won't die because you have a small puff. That can also help.
Thank you very much. So it's really around being able to speak up when you see instances that don't sit well with you, but also to encourage people to be comfortable with who they are. And as Dr. Faridah said, I think the schools these days have got many students, many more students going through them compared to before. And these are the national curriculum schools. Thank you very much. But the international schools may fare better at the numbers game, but whether or not they fare better at handling bullying instances, that's a different question. The numbers game of these international schools that have fewer still have good ratios of teacher to students. However, the handling of bullying may or may not be up to scratch, because I think with international schools, you might find there's a reputational damage they are afraid of, so they may not come out and be strong on bullying activity when they recognize it, and they might prefer to kind of let things go under the carpet, because if they come out with particular actions and initiatives, it may make their school stand out in a negative form, or so they speak. So I'm not sure that the schools are particularly finding this an easy time for them as well in handling this. And yet we have to look to schools to work alongside parents. And I think I'll put this over to the students that we've got here. where you mentioned if the schools are not doing enough to support bullying, what can you as students do to help raise the momentum that will get us moving towards a better society, a kinder society, as Hajat Rehmah's t-shirt was saying, her campaign, Be Kind. What can you as students do in your schools? So you can think about it, and when you're ready, if you're ready, you can come and share it, or you think about it, and then we'll come back to you. So anyone else who can give us some comments on whether they think schools are doing enough? Hajat Rehmah, any comments? So is your campaign running in schools? You mentioned teachers. Is your campaign running in schools?
Yes, we run in schools, but let me tell you, here is the thing. The schools don't, even the teachers don't even know what bullying is. This is the thing. So we don't know the act. We can't recognize it because we don't know it. So in schools, people who are bullies are called, oh, he's stubborn. You know, that stubborn boy, that stubborn girl. We use labels to minimize it. Then someone who is bullied, they are going to say, oh, that girl doesn't have self-confidence, that shy girl, you know, the quiet girl, the quiet boy. We minimize it to that level. So the schools are not aware of what bullying is, and they don't know how to deal with it. Even those who know how to deal with it, like we said, the pressures are too many. It's all about academics, grades, and performance. The teachers don't have the time. So that's why we are passing it back to the parents, because parents, most of the teachers are parents. So what the teachers are doing is not enough by all means. However, I'll tell you and it has been mentioned, it's about communication. We really need to establish communication channels, feedback loops where we don't just speak, we ask for feedback as teachers, as parents, children themselves to have that better communication. That's number two. Number three, for me, one of the things we are doing in schools is we are doing a lot of storytelling. We found that very powerful when children tell their stories, whether they've been bullied, whether they've bullied someone, or whether they've seen someone being bullied and they did something or didn't do anything. When they tell their stories, they become powerful because they know right now someone is listening to me and they are hearing me. That affirmation alone changes everything. And that's how we are going to see paradigm shifts happen in the children's lives when we give them that space to talk. Lastly, and still the doctors know this very well, reverse psychology. We've seen that happen a lot, where these bullies are called heroes. We say, don't be a bully, be a buddy, be the hero, stop bullying, be kind. And that alone, they want, because already by the time they bully, they want to be on the top. Now, if you call them ambassadors and heroes of being kind, then psychologically they feel important. And that's where the switch happens. By empowering them to be the ones to lead the change, you're already empowering them. So we work in schools. We've started with primary schools because we can't do it all. We've started with primary schools, both international and our Ugandan schools. We've gone to schools, and Faridah mentioned this, for example, Cited Primary School. There are 180 children per stream, not class, per stream. How do they manage to do that? They can't. So they can't do it. So we just have to have positive, and that's one of the things we are doing. We call them talking compounds. We post positive messages in the school where children can start having conversations. Still going back to communication, where we bring in positive conversations about knowing who you are, being proud of where you come from, acts of kindness, those little things we can do. Asking children, for example, today, do something, an act of kindness in someone's life. you can see everyone wanting to do something for their friends or someone who they were bullying. They want to show that they are also kind. So really, self-affirmation is going to be one of the key things that even teachers, they can easily do that in the school. As you are teaching math, you ask children to get up and say something positive about themselves. Already you're lifting their day. We joke about it. A smile, you ask the whole class to smile, because sometimes we are so tough. You come in front of the class and you ask them to smile, and you smile back. Already you are lifting the energy, in the school, in the community. So that's what I want to say about that.
Thank you very much, Hajat Rehmah. Something that you mentioned brought back a memory on one of the traditions from the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, which is the kindness, be kind. And the one it brought back is the teaching of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he gave to his companions to give gifts. And he told them, all my companions, give gifts. And he said, make the giving of gifts a common symbol amongst you. And the reason he gave is this: for the giving of gifts removes the malice of the heart. So it could be gifts of acts of kindness, it could be gifts of smiles, it could be anything, but gifting a person has as what you're saying, he obviously didn't put it in those terms, but that's the reverse psychology, that you give someone a gift if they feel negatively towards you, and you keep giving them gifts and again and again and again. Ultimately, at some point, they'll stop feeling, they'll give up on the negativity towards you. But this is some things that we've got to break down into regular teaching that we have now. So then we have, if anyone on the program has got a comment, a message, a question, do raise your hand or type it in the chat. We'll take it. We've got maybe another 20 or so minutes. And if people have got questions, do prepare the questions. We'll take a Q&A very shortly. But first, we'll read out the response in the chat from Rashida, which was the question on what is boarding school syndrome. And so the one who asked what boarding school syndrome is, the term boarding school syndrome was coined by a psychoanalyst and psychotherapist, Professor Joy Scavarian, who was also the author of a book on the subject. It refers to a cluster of symptoms such as anxiety, difficulty communicating and maintaining intimate relationships. It is not a medical diagnosis, but a proposal that there is an identifiable group of learned behaviors and emotional states that may follow growing up in boarding school, which can lead to serious psychological distress. So I hope that kind of, that there's sudden, of course, this is all the negative symptoms that come, anxiety and difficulty communication that some people develop because of prolonged or early entry into the boarding school system. So that's the response there. Anyone with comments or queries, please do type them in the chat or raise your hand. But for now, I posed a question to the students here engaging with schools. Are the schools doing enough? And they've had a bit of a chat amongst themselves, and they've got a few things that they think they could do differently in the school to help people overcome bullying. So I'll invite some of them over to the screen so that they can say what it is that they've got to say.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Latifa, and personally as students, I feel we can create support systems, like we can talk to our friends and they help us with a solution, give us some solutions to like the problem we're dealing with, and motivate us, because I feel when you share a problem, you can solve it partially. Yes. Hello again, Chantal here. For me, from the bullying experiences that we have seen in the school, I honestly think we should sensitize about what bullying is exactly, because in my case, I'm an HSC, so I can maybe tell like an O-level, let's say her dress or she's not very smartly dressed, and then I'll tell her maybe your belt is not well starched or your hem is popping, and then on the Friday assembly, they're saying how HSCs are bullying the O-levels, which is not necessarily the case. So I feel, and really suggest that people should be let know what bullying exactly is. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Nantamba Hindu. So about the solution of bullying, I feel like people should not take everything, every small thing to heart. They must let go of like the different things, because most of the people, as Chantal said, that they do not know the forms of bullying. Yes, so I feel like most of the people take every small thing to heart. So I encourage like most of the people, the bullies, to like at least be kind to one another. Yeah, but in most cases, they must let go of that solution, because something might happen. Like, okay, it happened to me in my S1. It was something like someone just took my things from nowhere, and I felt so sad. But I feel like most people should let go of that issue. Yes. Assalamu alaikum.
Have we had any instances of cyberbullying?
No.
No. So not okay. Not that you're aware of.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's good to hear. Thank you very much again to our students here. If you've got any questions or comments, please do come in the chat or raise your hand. So we're moving on to the final section. Hajat Rehmah, are there any things that we haven't talked about that you would like to discuss?
Yes, and these students spoke about it a bit or hinted. And I wanted to share what Maya Angelou said. She's a poet. She was a poet. She died a few years ago. She said, "It's not what you do or say to me, but how you make me feel." So let's not minimize the way you make someone feel to say, oh, they take everything to heart. No. You may say across to me is different. So in my world, we call it, there are 3 levels, which I'm going to summarize and give clear examples. Self-awareness, knowing who you are as a person. You know, when we grow up, we are branded so many names and labels. I know I was always called the lazy one, the weak one, Faridah, Dr. Faridah. I remember Navisunsa, how girls used to label you, you know, those labels. So how do you break out of that mode of the label they put you in? The self-awareness, knowing who you are, not what the world tells you. Because when you start from knowing who you are, then you can even get the courage. Even when this bully comes to you, you get the courage to say, hey, they may say that, but actually it doesn't mean, it's not that bad. Because if you don't know who you are, you're already wounded. Any little thing they say, you magnify it. You feel it's big. They told me because of this. They will talk to me because I'm short. They talk to me like that because I'm fat. You know, you magnify it. But if you know who you are and you have self-confidence, like I said, what we call self-awareness. And let me share even with the students who are on this, the young ones, even us adults, we need it. This is one exercise I take children through. I tell them what I do every morning, and it's an affirmation I've grown to do, and it helps me reaffirm myself. So every day I look in the mirror and ask myself, who am I? And say, I'm a star. Who am I? I'm a champion. Who am I? I'm a winner. Who am I? I'm intelligent. Who am I? I'm a leader. Who am I? I'm a beautiful African Muslim woman leader. And once I reaffirm myself, nothing can put me down. So for every young person out there, get your own words, verbs and nouns which are positive, and those become part of who you are. And once you have that strong foundation, even if someone comes and says, Karabe, look at her, you'll be like, inside you'll be like, I'm a star. and everything will just disappear because you know who you are. You are confident in your own self. That's level 1. Level 2 is the social awareness. Are we aware about the things around us? The people, where do they come from? Where is their anger comes from? So that when this boy or girl comes to you and she's mean to you, you know what? There's something going on. It's not about me, it's about them. Sometimes when someone comes to you and does something, criticizes you, it's not about you, it's about them. They are struggling and they are taking it out on you. But being aware, and one of the girls mentioned that, having those buddies, people who like you, we are calling them buddy groups, people who you can rely on and can rely on you, those social groups around you. We need to create them for ourselves. So find people who you can relate to in your school, in your community, and get those to be part of you. The last aspect is social change. So for the children, parents, teachers, all of us, we need to be part of the social change. Because guess what? If we don't deal with this problem of bullying today, we are creating a generation of angry, really angry adults. It starts from now, but it has effects the whole lives we are going to lead. You've seen managers who are always angry. You may trace it back to how they were brought up. Someone put them down, they want to put everyone down. We've seen husbands and wives who are angry today. It happened in their past, and they are taking it out now on the children, on everyone around us. So those are 3 levels I wanted to share by giving real examples: the self-awareness, the social awareness, and the social change. Each one of us can make a difference, and each one of us can do something. And I'll tell you one of the last things. Mahatma Gandhi is the one who said it. He said, be the change you want to see. If we want to stop the bullying, let's stop being bullies. But then let's not be bystanders. If you see someone being bullied, speak out and stand up and say, you know what, this is not right. And if you've been bullied or you're being bullied, just speak to someone. That's all I can say. Speak to someone. Speak to someone. And I'll also remind you an African proverb that we use in our work. We say, when you walk alone, you go fast. When you take others, you go far. So we need to know as a community that we need to work together. It's not about me and others. It's about all of us working together because we are stronger together. And for any one of you who wants to join this program, I'm open. I'll share my email. Sophia will share it with a group so that you get in touch and we see how can we share materials. We have a lot of materials. We've done a lot of research. We have materials to give to schools, but unless they allow us in their schools, I know now every school we go to, they are like, oh my God, we have to do exams, the P7s, we have to think about performance. But guess what? The children are going to perform well, but they will be broken children tomorrow. They may get A's and what are they called now? 4s, 5s, and 6, but they are broken children. We will have to invest in our children to be the leaders we want to see tomorrow. Because if we want to see a forest tomorrow, we have to grow the trees today. So let's really do something. Each one of us, just to remind us, each one of us can make a difference. So let's not say the teachers, the parents, you and you and you and you on this call, and anyone else who is going to watch this. Each one of us can make a difference. And it doesn't matter whether you're 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, or 40 years, each one of us can do something. Because this is a silent pandemic. We've had COVID-19, which was visible and everyone could see. This is a silent one. And unless we do something, we shall lose a whole generation.
Okay, thank you very much, Hajat Rehmah, for that. Something that you said raised a question here about, obviously, it's a very important instruction and guideline that you gave to speak to someone, speak to someone, speak to someone. Then Hindu here has a question.
I have a question about, in case like I have a problem and I want to tell it to person X, but person X has no, like, she has no power of like telling me something and like I understand it. Like some people do not have, let me say, a skill of like telling someone, like responding like the solution, like finding the solution for that person. So how would we deal with such a situation? Yes.
Yeah, Hindu, thank you for that question. And I'll take it back to you. You know, as a teacher, I'm a teacher in my own way. When someone asks me, I ask them back. Because at the end of the day, one of the last things we tell children is to take action. The action you take, if you say you have no one. Giving an example, you're in Gayaza High School. There are thousands of girls in the schools. Get someone you can speak to. It doesn't have to be your friend. I don't know if you are listening in the beginning. The person I spoke to because I didn't know how to speak English and they were bullying me, she wasn't even my friend. But I looked around and said, who is that someone I can speak to? And believe me, I spoke to many people before someone said yes. Speak out and someone is going to respond. If your close friends don't know how to deal with it, speak to someone else, speak to someone else, speak to someone else. But by all means, don't keep quiet about it because it will hurt you more every day. You lose your confidence, you lose your grades, they will go down. You know, many children would want to drop out of school because they believe now they are not good enough. So speak to someone. That's the first step. If you see that they can't deal with it, speak to another person. If you think your friends can't deal with it, speak to your teacher, to your matron. By all means, speak to someone.
Thank you very much for that, Hajat Rehmah. Dr. Faridah, anything that you'd like to talk about that we haven't touched on?
Sophia, we talked about cyberbullying, but we mentioned it, but it's very important for these young people to appreciate that it seems to be the biggest type of bullying for them now. In the past, it was, initially it was physical bullying that was most common. Then we went to verbal and social bullying. Social bullying continues to be significant, but cyberbullying for this young generation is anything because all of them have phones. All of them have all these media things, Snapchat, Instagram, and for some of these social media things, for example, Instagram, I understand someone can leave a message anonymously, so you don't know who put the message. So us as parents are the ones who buy these gadgets. It's important that we make the children aware that they expose themselves to cyberbullying if it can happen. For you to be able to monitor what's going on in some form, in one way or another, and to be able to sit down and figure out how you can manage this. Because if a child is going through cyberbullying, as you mentioned, Sophia, they sleep with their phone in the room. Whilst all of you are sleeping, the child might be seeing messages that could make them do something that is very unfortunate. So I think that's one thing that's very important for us as parents. When you buy that iPhone for your child as a birthday gift on their 10th birthday or 8th birthday, as it's now becoming a norm, you need to appreciate the implications and the impacts of this gift and know how you're going to manage that. Then the other thing that I wanted to touch on is children who will see this video once it's made or who are in the session. You need to remember to try and remove yourself from the bully. You need to try and not give the bully a response, because whenever you give the bully a response, you are giving them the satisfaction that they wanted, because that's where they were trying to push you to. And I have heard people say that one needs to be resilient, emotionally strong, mentally tough. These things, we say them, they're not easy, but you need to try and get yourself away from this person who is hurt themselves, who wants to hurt you. You have to figure out a way to get yourself away from them. And so when you do that, that's the beginning of their loss of the battle. The one that they were trying to win, when you remove yourself, they start their journey of losing, and that might make them leave you alone. For their peers, it's important for you to figure out, when you see that your friend is being bullied, many a times we tend to leave these people, we tend to step away so that we leave them on their own. It is better if you're a good friend, a good acquaintance, to make this person your friend, because our bullies tend to identify these people when they try to isolate them. So, but if they realize that there's someone with them, they tend to leave them alone. If you see bullying going on, it's very important for you to interrupt it if you can, because again, the bully gets surprised that someone is trying to stop what they're doing. And those are the things that it's, as Hajat Rehmah had said, it's like it's a counter to what they are doing, and that tends to shock them. Remember to speak out to stop the bully, because again, the bully is not used to someone speaking out, and tell someone. Again, that telling someone is important. We've all mentioned it. That's important for you to remember. For the parents, it's listening, as we've said, validating how your child feels. And don't tell them, let it go, it's okay, all of us went through that. No, you might have gone through that, but that was wrong. Figure out how you can manage. A parent mentioned, go to the school if you have to. I've had an instance where I've picked up the phone and spoken to a mother and told her, your child is a bully and you need to do something about it. And the mother had no clue. For her, all the parents were talking about this particular child, and no one had told her that her child was a bully. But once we were able to tell the parent that your child is a bully, the mother was able to snap out of this thing of thinking, oh, okay, what is going on? And you know, that saved a lot of other children the sadness and the pain that they would have gone through because of this one bully. So we need to act. We need to act. But for the young people, again, one thing I have heard, many children tend to say that when you tell your parent will decide, I'm going to go to school and I'm going to speak to the teachers and I'm going to speak to this child, and that tends to worry them because they think it's going to get worse. If a friend could manage it for you, if a peer can see and help you, sometimes the bullies actually kind of makes them realize how bad they have been compared to a parent coming in. But as parents, we might have to do this ourselves. We need to act. We need to act. Bullying is significant, it's severe, it results in depression, eating disorders, and all these things, and worst case, it results in death. So we need to really be aware of this thing and see how we support the children. Hajat Rehmah, I'm very impressed with this Be Kind. I'm hoping that I'll hear more of it. I'm hoping schools will accept you to go in. Alhamdulillah, this is something that will make a big difference, because truly we are very mean people. We need more kindness in this world. So Sophia, once again, thank you so much for bringing up this topic. I am hoping that it's a start of discussions in homes, in schools, amongst the children. And we pray that we can get kinder children, but the way it's looking now, it's not good.
Thank you very much for that. Alhamdulillah. We have a question that came in the chat, which we'll take and then we'll carry on. If a child is bullied in a school, is changing schools a solution? Isn't that teaching the child to run away from problems? So Dr. Faridah or Hajat Rehmah, if you change the school, isn't that teaching the child to run away from problems?
You see, this is again how we have been brought up. So we think, okay, if a child is being bullied, and as a parent you're thinking, I need to take this child out of the school, but it's making them run away from problems, you're also not dealing with the problem itself. I think there are two things to think about here. if you are thinking this bullying is bad to the extent that you need to move the child, you need to act on this thing so that this particular bully does not affect other people's children. For you, you have the option to take your child out. But I think if it's that bad that you need to move your child away, I think then go ahead and do it. Because if bullying gets to a point where you as a parent, you feel you need to change an environment, you want your child to be safe. And this bullying makes a child unsafe in an environment they should be safe in. You move them, but that won't solve the problem. That won't solve the problems that, because this child remains with anger. You might put them in another school where they'll thrive, they'll be happy. So it's an interesting question, but as a parent, you need to think about it and question yourself why you're thinking that if you let your child stay in an environment of bullying, that then you are not making them run away from problems. Oh God, it makes me, it leaves my brain a bit tickled. But I think if you feel that your child is not safe, it's better to move them, but you need to deal with the issues that have come out of their bullying, and also help the school where you've taken them out of, because that bully has remained there and they're going to affect other children.
Thank you very much for that. I think it's the nature of how that problem is handled. It's not necessarily just lift the child out of the school and into another environment. It's really what conversations the parent has with the child, and then what coping mechanisms or solutions that the parent can help the child get to in terms of if they have low self-esteem, or they don't feel confident, or they put themselves in situations where they are targeted unfairly by bullies. I think that is part of the problem-solving mechanism, which then perhaps ultimately leads to a decision to move school. But at least the child will appreciate that you go through different mechanisms to solve a problem, and sometimes exit is the final one, not the first one that is taken, but it is the final one if all else has failed. We're coming to the end of the program. I think if anyone on the call today feels there's anything that has been left unsaid, now is a chance to say it, or as they say in the churches, forever hold your peace. However, the intention with this session is to open conversations, parents amongst parents, parents with schools, parents with children, children amongst children, students of different ages, so that we can get to a much sounder society, a kinder society, and one that appreciates and values the differences and gifts that we have. As we opened, one of the things that we said is that bullies tend to identify a point of weakness in the bully victim, and that weakness is usually the reason they might be drawn to this bully victim is that the victim has stood out in some way to the bully, perhaps in educational excellence, or in beauty, or in physical prowess. Maybe they're a good sports person, whatever it is, that they stood out in one respect, and the bully needed to bring them down and used a vulnerability that harms and really takes away the blessing that this person has. So it's recognizing that all these things are factors in the world that we're in. Students and children right now are facing challenges that are far beyond what we ever faced or what we can even envisage. Initiate conversations. We should be initiating those conversations. It's back to this. That is the biggest message. Hajat Rehmah said, speak out, speak out, speak out. And Dr. Faridah said the advice from her daughter was to listen, and really listen, not just hear, but to listen. So this is not the solution program. It's not a solution session. It is an initiation of discussions. The solutions have been talked about, and approaches have been talked about by both Dr. Faridah and Hajat Rehmah, but it's really now for us to go out and start to make the changes that will make the society that we're in much more comfortable and healthy for the children that we have in our care, the children that we look after, if we're teachers, the children that we teach. But as children as well as students, please, please, please do open up to people. As Hajat Rehmah said, speak out. Do open out to people around you. It might not be your parent, it might be a neighbor, it could be an aunt, an uncle, whoever it is that you trust, that you can speak out to them and trust that they've got your best interests at heart. Choose wisely who you speak to so that they can find solutions with you and help you overcome the bullying incidents. So if anyone has got final comments, please do raise your hand, chat. But if there are no final comments, we will start the wrap-up session. I'll give it a moment or two for people to raise hands or whatever it is that they would like to do. So there are no hands being raised, but just as a recap, that bullying affects everyone, the bullied, the bully, the bystander. So at any one point, we, the people on this call, are in one of these situations. We are either the bullied, a bully, or a bystander. Most often we might be the bystander, but we've got to recognize that even as bystanders, it means when we don't do anything, we affect how our community develops, how our community moves forward or is degraded in terms of development because people are not achieving their best potential. So everyone gets affected. Let's take that message away from this, that in any one situation, let's try and look out for the things that we can do better. We have had a good couple of hours, inshallah, discussing the effects of bullying, what we can do about it, and how not to suffer in silence. I hope that we're able to take this forward to those people who did not participate or join. This program will be aired on YouTube. It will be live on YouTube at 8 p.m. on Tuesday this week, 8 p.m. that's Ugandan time, inshallah, for anyone that missed it. But if there's anything that you have missed or would like further information on, there is a Hajat Rehmah. She's offered to engage with us and engage with our schools to be kinder and to help us overcome bullying. So these are some final reflections that those who are bullied may feel disconnected from school. And this is ways to recognize the bullying, have low self-esteem, and in extreme situations have a higher risk of suicide or suicidal thoughts. And that is never good for a family or a situation that is in a school or society. Those who display bullying behavior, again, we tend to have, again, some low self-esteem that we boost up by putting down those who we think are better than us. We might have high levels of aggression. Again, these are things that we can go away to reflect upon. The source is Bullies Out. There are many worldwide campaigns trying to eliminate bullying from schools and work establishments. Hajat Rehmah here is doing a wonderful job with the campaign Be Kind, which really is a campaign against bullying. And then, so those of us, inshallah, I hope that most of us who are on this call have not experienced bullying in the recent times. However, if we're in that case, then we should not be quiet about when we witness it, or quiet about the instances that we had in the past when we were bullied, because that can mean the help and support for a person who is struggling out there. I think we close the time for questions. And so next week, inshallah, we'll carry on with our regular class. Those who are willing to join our regular class, we don't really have special guests other than for the once a month or once every 5 to 6 weeks. But for the regular class, we'll carry on with diseases of the heart, looking at envy. We opened the program today saying that envy sometimes is very much one of the reasons why bullies resort to bullying, because they've recognized a blessing in the life of another person that they wish to take away, or at least if they can't take away the blessing, they'll take away the joy that the person feels in their life. So we'll carry on looking at that as a disease of the heart that prevents us from achieving the highest levels of spiritual excellence. And obviously spiritual excellence will lead us to the people of Jannah and a good meeting with our Lord. So with that, I don't see any final comments or questions from the group. I'd like to thank Hajat Rehmah Kasule. Thank you very much for joining us, and wishing you the very best with the campaign that you're running, where we're able to join hands and work together. Inshallah, we will. And the students here have already indicated that they're interested in knowing a bit more about this campaign. And so inshallah, we'll touch base with you on that. And Dr. Faridah Sekalala, thank you very much for coming on, for giving us your time and sharing your experiences. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. We'll close. I usually give activities to the people who join the classes. And the activities for this week is, what will you do differently? Based on the conversations today, what are you going to do differently when you encounter bullying? If you're a bystander, what are you going to do? If you're a subject of bullying, what are you going to do differently? And as a person who has a bullying tendency, what are you going to do differently? I think as bystanders, one of the best ways is to get in touch with Hajat Rehmah, so that you can get engaged in her Be Kind campaign. So, but we always take activities from the session. What are we going to do differently? And inshallah, that means that we'll have benefited and learned something from the session. With that, we'll make the closing dua. Thank you everyone for attending, for sharing your thoughts. Anyone who missed out, please do advise them that this recording will be shared on WhatsApp. Sorry, the link will be shared on WhatsApp and will be aired on YouTube on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Uganda time. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين في كل لحظة أبدا عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Thank you very much everyone for joining us today. Have a good day and a good end to the weekend. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
Thank you.